Thanks again for joining us. We're going to tell you a bit more about the project, what we're aiming to do, why we're doing it, and how you can get involved. My name's Kate Jarman. I'm the Trust Archivist for Barts Health NHS Trust. And we look after the archives of Whips Cross, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. And my colleague Claire is also hosting tonight.
So hello everyone, really nice to, well, sort of almost see you, to know that you're there. I think that's kind of what I want to say. Yes, I'm going to be working with Kate on Whips Cross Voices. I don't actually work for Barts. I'm a freelancer and I have a background in working in community history projects. So I've done a lot of similar type projects in schools, theatres and with friends organisations. But this will be the first time that I've worked on a hospital project. So I'm really excited to be working with Kate and with all of you as well.
Brilliant. So thank you very much, Claire. Claire will tell you a bit more a bit later on about how you can get involved. But first of all, I just wanted to give everyone a bit of an introduction to the archives and to what we do, because I know that is it's new to a lot of people that Barts Health holds archives, and not everyone is aware of the collections that we hold for Whips. So if you're not familiar with the idea of archives, you might like to think of them as collections of information that have been created by individuals, groups or organisations during their work or life, and have been deemed to be worth keeping permanently for research, for evidential reasons. So that could be a real wealth of stuff. It could be letters, reports, minutes, maps, photographs, sound recordings. Unlike books in a library, archives aren't usually secondary sources of information. So they're kind of first-hand information or evidence about events, people, places. And unlike library books, which are arranged by subject and author, information in archives is arranged according to the person or information that created it. And they're kind of part of the collective and cultural memory of a place or community. Confusingly, archive can also mean where the archives themselves are stored, as well as the collection of materials. So we might say that the Whips Cross Hospital Archive is held at Barts Health NHS Trust Archives. And we, as the archives, hold the records and historic objects of the Trust's 5 current hospitals, including Whips, plus over 30 current and former hospitals, as well as associated health authorities, medical schools, nursing schools, charities, individuals, lots and lots of organisations associated with the hospitals. Some of these collections are really small. They might just be a few minute books or staff registers retrieved when a hospital closed. Some are really big collections transferred over many years in a more systematic way. We're open to everyone by appointment. We've got nearly 70,000 records listed on our catalogue at present, and anyone is welcome to use that catalogue, which is online, to search for material, and you can book an appointment to view it. The records and objects we look after fill about 2 kilometres of shelving, so you do need to make an appointment in advance because we can't just pull something off a shelf. A small amount of material is viewed online, but like all archives, we've got a big backlog of uncatalogued material, and very little in our collections is currently digitized. We're constantly working to make it all more searchable and more online, and we're regularly updating the catalogue data and other online resources, and that's one of the things we'll kind of talk about with this project. So the Whips Cross collections, I've got a few items from the collections here, just which I hope you can see to give a bit of an idea of some of the kind of breadth of material. Today, there are clear guidelines issued by the NHS and within the Trust on the retention of records, but in the past, what was kept often varied by hospital. So some hospitals might have had administrators who were really thorough in their records retention. Other places may have lost records in bombing, or through just closure and lack of transfer to the archives. So Whips Cross didn't generally retain its archives very consistently before it became part of Barts Health. So survival of records is quite patchy. There's a few records and photographs relating to the hospital in other local archives. So the records of the West Ham Union Board of Guardians, who were originally responsible for building the hospital at Newham Archives, for example. But the main collections for the hospital, such as they are held by us at Barts Health. And what has survived in our archives provides more detail on some periods, some aspects of the hospital's history than others. So for example, you can see we've got some records and images relating to the early days of the hospital, the First World War. You can see the image here of the First World War football match between wounded soldiers and laundry girls. We've got a lot relating to nurse training and nursing at the hospital, as you can see from some of these images. But there's less on the management and administration of the hospital itself, on the construction of the buildings. We've got some records of the health authorities, which managed WIPs in the later 20th century, but little in other senses for the period between the Second World War and the 1980s. And like all our hospital collections, what we do have relates to the institution rather than the individuals. And obviously, as I'm sure you all know, hospital is nothing without people. And we know that WIPS is a hospital at the heart of its community, and it means a lot to a lot of people. So what we want to do with this project is capture those stories and to ensure that the stories of individuals are also captured in the collections. So why are we doing this now? Well, as I'm sure everyone familiar with the hospital knows, the redevelopment of the hospital has been discussed for probably about 2 decades, and the Future WIPS project marks the start of a new chapter in the hospital's history. Barts charity, who are funding this project, are doing it in recognition that this is a really good opportunity to ensure that our collections represent the many histories of WIPS, and that we can share those stories widely and tell them in the context of the new hospital. We hope that members of the local communities and the wider WIPS Cross family will join us to share their thoughts and feelings and memories about the hospital as it moves into this new period. We know there's loads of fantastic local and community heritage organisations and groups within the catchment area of the hospital, and we want this project to build on the work of previous projects which have recognised and documented stories of the hospital. So there was, for example, a project done by Eastside Community Heritage in 2015, which looked at the war hospital, kind of First World War period and the pre-Second World War period of the hospital. There's lots of great organisations doing oral history, like Waltham Forest Oral History Workshop. There's several historical societies who have all looked at WIPS in different ways, and what we want to do is build on and supplement that work. We also want to help people participating in the project to develop new skills by working with the existing archives and to help share the unique history of WIPS more widely. And we particularly want to find out about some specific aspects of WIPS cross history, if we can, that is only really hinted at in the existing archives. So I've got really interested in certain aspects of WIPS history over the last year. For example, the history of nurse training, which encompass some of the earliest male nurse training in the UK. We want to know more, if we can, about the tradition of Irish diaspora nurses coming to train and work at WIPS. We know there's a really strong Irish nursing contingent. We want to know more about the changing landscape of the hospital and people's experiences of that, the old lake, more modern developments. And we want to hear stories of recent decades, so the health authorities that have run WIPS and the long-standing campaigns about the hospital's redevelopment. So there's lots of different aspects that we want to try and capture through this. So Claire will talk a bit more about how you can get involved, but just as a kind of brief summary of what the project is going to involve. We're going to have a range of opportunities depending on interest and availability. One of the kind of key strands is oral history, which some people may be more familiar with than others. We're looking to record a number of oral history interviews, which basically are usually recorded interviews starting from a particular theme. In this case, it's obviously the hospital, which capture stories which might not be present in existing sources and organisational records. So our interviews are going to be carried out by a team from the NHS at 70 and NHS Voices of COVID-19 projects. So they've done a lot of oral history work with healthcare professionals and patients and others with experiences of the NHS over the last few years. They'll be mostly doing those recordings over the phone. There may be an opportunity to do some in person as well. And then those recorded interviews with summaries will be retained in the archives as a historic record for the future. We'll also be doing some shorter recordings, and we want to improve access to the existing collections through cataloguing, through digitisation. We hope that there will be some involvement of volunteers in that. We'd like to add more material to the archives And there's particular activities where which we'd like to capture better in the archives, things like the hospital radio station, really long-standing kind of community aspects of WIPs. And we're planning some online and on-site activities to share and interpret materials. So to tell you a bit more about how you can get involved in all this, I'm going to hand over to Claire. Hopefully you should be able to just pick up from the next slide.
Lovely, thank you. So yeah, thanks, Kate. That's really helpful. So one of the first, so yes, would you like to be one of our WIPs Cross Voices, I guess is the invitation. We're, as Kate said, the hospital isn't anything without people. We're really keen to include your voice, your stories, and to get you involved in all of the different activities that we're planning. So one of the first ways, perhaps most obvious way, is to share memories of the hospital. Kate's outlined some of the things that we have in mind at the moment, but please don't let that restrict you. These are just things that have kind of come into our minds. If there's something that you think we would be interested to hear about, please do let us know. So sharing your memories could be an oral history recording. As we've said, that will be done with our partners at NHS at 70. That's a more formal interview. We're looking probably at about an hour recording process, or rather an hour's interview, probably a bit longer, the whole process. And we're really looking for people who've maybe had a longer association with the hospital, but that could be in whatever capacity. It could be that you have had a working relationship, or it could be that the hospital is your local community hospital. So that could be something for you, and if you think that it is, I'll tell you in a little while how you can get in touch with us about that. If that all sounds a bit too formal and you think that's perhaps a bit too long for you, we are also going to be creating some shorter, more informal vox pop, if you like, recordings. And really think of these as being, you know, sort of a couple of minutes recording that perhaps just share one or two memories that you have. And we will be doing those, collecting those as we go along, and particularly thinking about collecting them at our events days, and also involving people who might like to volunteer on the project in capturing those. So don't worry, all the training, all the equipment will be provided for that, but that might be something that you would like to contribute, but also to help us to create as well. If you think your memory is better suited to being written down, or if you would prefer to write your memory down, that's absolutely fine, of course. And there will be opportunities to share that either by contacting us in the ways that you've contacted us already through the website. You can either email things to us, or there will be a form going up on the website tomorrow where you can write things down. Which leads me on to the next one, which is things to share. And I've had to be a bit vague here because really, we don't know what's out there. So we have, as Kate's shown, we've got photos. We might have all sorts of things, leaflets, posters, flyers, but really you might have the only copy of a particular leaflet or a flyer or a film that's out there. So it's a bit difficult to say exactly what it is at the moment, but perhaps you've got it. And if you do have it, then please let us know. It's good for us to know what's out there, so that we don't end up with kind of lots and lots of the same thing, and also just to kind of be prepared for what we might receive. Thank you. Next one. Oh, is it not happening? Oh, there we are. And this kind of leads on to my next thing, but next way that you can get involved, which is improving what we already know. And I've put this photo here as a bit of an example of this. So we have this fantastic photo of some people doing some sort of exercise display in, I think the date is 1949, and really helpfully somebody has included an initial and a last name of the people who are doing the exercises. So that's kind of, you know, that's kind of helpful. We have a bit of a starting point for that. Obviously, we don't know what any of those initials really stand for, and we certainly don't know who any of those people in the background are. And it might be that you have that bit of information, or it might be that you have a little bit of information, and that together we can really build on what we know about things that are already in the collection. And then hopefully, as we kind of move through the project and we accumulate more documents, hopefully, and we can start to build on that in that way. Next one, thanks, Kate. And that kind of then leads on to scanning items that we already have. So we've done a small selection of photos to get us started, but there is a existing archive of material at West Smithfield at Barts Hospital, and really we are hoping that there might be a team of people who would be interested in digitising that material, and by digitising it, adding that to our catalogue, we can improve access to the material for anybody who's interested in using this in the future for whatever purpose, so researchers in the future. Thank you. And obviously one of the big ways that you can help and to get involved is to tell other people, to spread the word. And the project itself is going on for a year, so we have plenty of time. And it might be that you think, actually, I don't need to, I haven't got time to be involved in this at the moment, but that's okay. We're going to be running for a long time, so it might be that you would like to join us. And sometimes these things it takes a little while for the word to get out there, so spreading the word far and wide would be really helpful. And we will also be trying to share what we found out, sharing what we are discovering in the sharing your knowledge in from the existing material, but also in new documents that come forward. And what we'd like to do is put up some displays and perhaps develop a walking trail, and there'll be opportunities to get involved with working in groups and perhaps producing displays and a trail that interprets some of this history. So just a kind of an overview of some of the ways that you might be able to get involved, you might like to get involved in the project. Next slide, please, Kate. So obviously everybody has different levels of time that they might be able to commit to a project, and different interests, and that's absolutely fine. I've already mentioned some really simple, quick, easy ways that you could get involved that are just going to take a couple of minutes, really, and that might just be one-off, or it might be something that you're able to support us with ongoing throughout the project. So something like spreading the word, telling people, telling your friends and colleagues, sharing information that we might put out on social media. We will be doing some calls for information on the website as well, and perhaps sharing some of those photos, thinking about the exercise display and the football team on that one of those first slides that Kate showed, actually putting some of that stuff out there and just asking, you know, do you know anything about this? Do you know any of those people? So if we can get that things like that out far and wide, then that's really helpful for us. Please take a look at the website. From tomorrow, there'll be a couple of pages up to help for you to share your memory and also to sign up, but also keep an eye out for when we're running events. So we are planning to run 5 events over the course of the project. We're going to do 4 of those at the hospital itself, and then we'll do 1 out and about somewhere else, just so that we can try and capture some different voices and maybe some different stories. So please look out for when they're going to be on, and come and find us. It might be that you'd like to help out at one of those events, which I'll come on to in a minute, but perhaps it's just coming along, having a look at what we've got to show everybody, having a chat with us, and maybe that would lead into recording a Vox Pop interview, or maybe even going on to something a bit longer as well. So as I've said, keep an eye out for calls for information, and please do drop us a line if you have anything that you think we'd like to see that maybe we don't have. If you would like to kind of create a list of that and just email it in, that's absolutely perfect. Thank you. Next one, please. So that's previous slide was, you know, just kind of quick, easy ways that you can get involved. But if you have a bit more time and you think you'd like to get stuck in with the project in a bit more detail, then perhaps you would consider becoming a volunteer in one of these ways. So recording your story with us, by that I mean an oral history interview. As we've already said, that's kind of a more in-depth interview, probably around about an hour for the interview itself. I've been a bit generous with my 2 to 3 hours here, but that's just to kind of say that there will be a little bit of setting up, and there will be a bit of associated kind of paperwork and that kind of stuff. So altogether, I would think sort of 2.5 hours is probably about right. Would you like to become an event volunteer? So I spoke just a little bit before about the events, but perhaps you would like to be one of the people who is present at the event to talk to people who come along. This would mean kind of just setting some stuff up, helping set up the table display, and then maybe involving, and then maybe making some of those Vox Pop recordings as well. Or maybe taking some notes while I think about it, as people are kind of telling us all this lovely information. And then the final one, which I guess is probably the most in-depth way of getting involved, is to become an archive volunteer. And this would mean digitizing, so scanning some of the archive that comes our way, or the existing collection. That's going to be something that happens in the archive with Kate at Barts, and we're looking for that to be a regular group of people, or a regular couple of people to work on that. I think it makes sense for that to be less of a drop-in, drop-out thing, because there will be an element of training that has to happen around that, so that you know what's going on. But there will be all the training that is needed on the project will be given, of course, and expenses will be covered for that. But that's a more focused, longer piece of work that we hope that you'd like to get involved with, because that's kind of I think that's a really kind of exciting bit of the project. Thank you. So next steps, what's going to happen next? So hopefully you're interested. What we'll do is we will send out an email over the next couple of days, which just is a summary of what we've been speaking about this evening, and it will be a signpost to what to do next. We'll also include a link to the recording of this meeting. We will be creating a project newsletter, so please do sign up to receive the newsletter, and within that there'll be kind of regular updates on what we're doing and on the dates for any of the events. As I've said, the project itself is going to be going on for a year, so please don't feel that if you don't join in now, it's not something that you can't pick up again at a later date. So this really is working for you at a time that you have time to join in. But just to give you an idea, we are hoping to get started with our first events in May and June. So we're kind of gearing up for those soon, and we'll be able to release the dates that they will be happening then. Thank you, Kate. I think the next slide is contact details.